All right, I want to welcome all of you to the LBCA Coaches Corner. We took a week or so off. Had a lot of people around the state that obviously suffered a lot of damage from Hurricane Laura, and we're still praying for our friends and coaching brothers down in Southwest Louisiana still recovering from this. But I'm John Parker. I'm head baseball coach at Ouachita Christian, also on the board of directors with the LBCA. And today I've got Mark Carroll, the head baseball coach at Denham Springs, with us on the Coaches Corner. And Mark, I appreciate you joining us.
Sure, glad to help, man. No doubt. Good to see you.
Well, we obviously you're, and I don't really, I don't really how to say this, but I know you're one of the kind of the elder statesmen, I guess, if that's a good way to say it.
Elder's a nice way to say that.
In the LBCA, and you've been around for quite a while and been executive director of the LBCA for quite a few years, and so wanted to be one of our first guests on the Coaches Corner. So, Mark, if you would just kind of give us an overview of your career, where you started, how you got your start, and kind of all the way up to now.
Gotcha. Well, my first year of coaching started actually in the fall of '84, so I guess the elder part was real fitting there. I started at Ridgedale in West Monroe. And
oh, wow.
I was really, really lucky to coach under Woody Boyles at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Boyles, my older brother is a coach in Texas, and he'd started under Coach Boyles too at River Oaks and stuff. So anyway, it was, got to coach under him, and he was, for anybody who doesn't know Coach Boyles, he was a quarterback at Northeast, and he played basketball, and he was also the first head baseball coach when they started their baseball program. And so I would, during the summer in West Monroe, I would coach with him on a summer league team, and then at school, I started with Jimmy Haynes there. So, coached there for a long time and for a few years, and came down to Central Private, moved down to Baton Rouge, coached at Central Private for several years, and then moved over to Bel Air High School and coached there for a while. And then I've been here at Denham for 20-something years now. So that's my wife and I both teach here, and got a daughter in the 10th grade here. So it's, this is been our home for quite a while. So that's kind of the coaching history of the schools where I've been. I got real lucky during that time to get hooked in with LSU's camps when Coach Bertman was there, and I worked for Coach Bertman for about 15 years, I think, or more at camps there. And we had a big group of us that always worked those camps and learned lots of baseball from those guys. It was, some of it does transfer to high school kids and some of it doesn't, but there were a lot of the really, really what I consider some of the better baseball coaches around the state working those camps, and they'd be in and out. So we stayed up late nights a lot of times talking lots of baseball, and and I learned a ton of stuff from those guys. So it was very, very fortunate about that.
Yeah, you obviously you mentioned several guys right there, which brings me to kind of my next question or next topic, and just kind of discuss some of those influences in your career. You mentioned Coach Boyles and obviously Coach Bertman and some of those guys that kind of go into some detail with some of those influences in your career.
Well, with Coach Boyles, of course, he was, they called him the professor of football. So I was lucky to coach football with him, but the baseball too, he was really, really good. And he was very much a proponent of the short game. I mean, we would bunt and bunt and bunt, and and guys would throw it all over the place, and we won lots of games, coaching and working with him. But he was good. And what I learned a lot from Coach Boyles, I think, was just the relationship with the kids and handling kids a little bit. And he, during football season, he would tell like a story every day before practice, and it sometimes it's short, sometimes it's kind of long, but had some kind of life lesson in it. So you kind of learn a lot of that. And he would always tell me, well, maybe one of them's listening, but after he passed away years later, the kids that played at Ridgedale that I still talk to, they know almost every story word for word. So they were really listening to what he was saying. So I mean, it's Coach Bertman at camp one night a week, he would stay up with us and go through baseball, and he would pretty much on whatever part of the game it was he was doing, or how to handle your program, build your program, do this and that. But, and he would answer any question you had about the baseball stuff. And, Smoke Laval, all those guys, Bianco was the player first and then later on as a coach. But it was Cano, all those guys, you could talk baseball to them any night, every night, and they would really go through and teach you a lot of stuff. And it's, a lot of our pitching system that I use right now is kind of based on what I learned from Coach Burton, with some tweaks from some other guys in there and some other things that I've learned since then. But, but it was a good group of guys, no doubt. And, some of the assistant coaches that I've worked with that worked with me throughout the year, Randy Carr, I talked about earlier, he's up in Monroe area now, but he'd come down here and we actually coached at Ridgedale together for a little while, and then down here at Bel Air and some stuff. And Josh Martin, who coached with me here for several years, just super coach. And then Sam Tully over at Lafayette, he and I have been friends forever. And he was working those camps at LSU and doing that stuff too. And so we spend a lot of time learning baseball at the same time, and and talking baseball and learning it from him. So and then there's a million guys. I mean, it's my theory on that is I'm learning something new every day, every year. I try to read nonstop and watch stuff, and just a different way of explaining it, because some kids are going to understand it one way and some kids don't have a clue about understanding it that way. So you have to have a different way of presenting it, which Coach Bailey was one of the ones who kind of explained that to me in depth early at LSU camp when he was talking about some hitting stuff. And it's, you just got to have several different ways to explain what you're trying to get to. So I think that was a pretty big influence on how I try to do it. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. And, I know during this, of course, everybody went through the quarantine period, from March on. And, one thing that I was able to do was, I read a lot, but, listened to a lot of podcasts and different things like that. And, some of it was on leadership, some of it was on baseball. One thing that a lot of these guys really focused on was, kind of having that close, knit group of guys that you could rely on, that, if you had, whether it be a baseball question or how do I deal with a parent situation? How do I deal with this? Do you have that kind of that close knit group of that friends or coaching colleagues that you rely on?
Oh yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. I've got I got a group of guys I talk to all the time. I mean, and if I have a question or something, or I might call one of them and say, there's a situation going on. How would you handle some of this or whatever? Or they'll call me with the same deal, and we'll cuss and discuss it, so to speak. But it's, it's so different, and it's, overall, our parents here are pretty good. And when I talk to a lot of other coaches from other places, I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
But ours are pretty good. I think some of that's just because I've been here a long time. They'll back off and leave me alone a little bit. But we have our moments too, like everybody else does. But,
absolutely.
But I definitely talk to a bunch of my friends whenever some of this crazy mess gets started or gets rolling along a little bit, and kind of listen to them and the way they would approach it. And sometimes it gives me a little while to settle down and relax before I do it. I try to follow my own 24-hour rule that I talk to our parents about, after games or practice, we're not going to talk right then. We're going to wait a little while and let the emotions get out of it a little bit, so we can try to act like adults anyway.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned you've been at Denham Springs now for over 20 years, and and everybody knows you around the state as far one of the best baseball programs in the state. You've turned out some really, really good players that have gone on to play college and professional. Kind of take us through a little bit of that path of when you got to Denham Springs and what it took to kind of build that program.
Well, Denham's always had they had a good program before I got here. Coach McGee had been the coach, and before him had been Coach Long, and then Coach Bailey before that. So, they've had a lot of good kids roll through here, and I've been real lucky to have really good coaches to coach with me. Like I said, Josh Martin was one of the ones that comes to mind because he was with me so long here. I've had several ex-players have come back after they got out of school and got in the teaching, coaching profession and coached with me. And and that helped because they kind of knew how we wanted it done and taught and kind of the standards we were going to go by. But like I said, first thing is the good players we've had, and we work them pretty good. We try to, and that's one of the things I think that has really helped is that we get after it and work pretty hard, and most of the time our kids buy in pretty good. I tell them the team chemistry part, kind of like you mentioned a little bit a while ago, that's the missing link every year. It's not necessarily the talent you have here or there. Of course, the talent helps, like we all know. That's one of the big things. But the team chemistry and how much are you willing to put your own personal stuff on the backside to do what's best for the team. So that's kind of one of the big things that we go through with our kids. And, I had one of my kids tell me about a year ago, we were doing some things, answering this little thing, just a little questionnaire thing I'd given them. And he mentioned, so, well, you're old school, coach. And said, yeah, I am. Yeah. That. And I tell them that's the good and the bad for you. I said, it's, we're going to hold you to a different standard than probably your travel ball guys do, and do some things a little different. But it's, first thing we're always go through is, we're going to make sure you act and behave like you're supposed to and be a good person is the number one thing. And then being a good baseball player is way down the line. We want to be a good person, be a good teammate, and then be a good player, rolling up a little bit after that. So yeah, that's kind of how we try to address our program. And like I said, the kids have bought in pretty good here, but it's traditionally in this town, you've got a lot of good guys coming in, and they, like I said, they get in our program and work real hard. So it's, we've been real fortunate to have a bunch of them. We've got 5 guys underclass, 5 players committed to D1 right now on our roster, which is kind of like, wow. Yeah. But now a lot of that's too is the colleges going after all these kids a lot earlier and faster. And, and some of them, like, wow, he hadn't hardly played for us very much yet, but he's got that French word potential. So, they're kind of jumping on that right now.
Absolutely. Well, and I didn't even, I didn't ask you about this before we started recording, but, kind of you started kind of touching on some of these things of, team chemistry and that kind of thing. Of course, one of the big buzzwords right now and a lot of these podcasts and books and all this kind of stuff is culture. And so tell me a little bit about, tell our listeners a little bit about, what some of the most important components of your culture at Denham Springs.
Well, one of the ones I stress to them all the time is communication. Well, and that's if something's wrong, if you're, whatever, you got something bothering you or something going on, you have to be able to communicate with me. You have to communicate with your teammates during a game. And, I tell them if you learn to communicate now at this point, you're going to save yourself a whole bunch of time and trouble later on when you're married, when you have a job, when you do, there's all through your life. If you learn to communicate and will communicate, you can knock out a lot of problems before they become problems. So that's, we really stress that. One I learned from Coach Bertman too. He told us a story one night about at Jewish weddings, and they wrap a wine glass in a towel or whatever and stomp on it or whatever, and it breaks into a gazillion pieces. And he told us that glass represents the trust of a relationship. And the odds of you putting that glass back together are pretty tough once you've broken the trust. And I pretty much use that example with them every year too. Said, you've got to be honest with me, and I'm going to be, you might not like what I say, but I'm going to be very, very honest with you about, if you come to me about why you're not playing or why this or why that, I said, might not like my answer, but I'm going to be very, very honest with you. And and the trust part between a player and a coach is very, very important. And I think our kids know we're going to do what we think is best for our program, not necessarily for that individual kid, definitely not for us as coaches. We're going to do what helps our team the most and helps our program the most.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a couple of topics here that relate, especially to our state and in our baseball association, but I mean just all throughout our state of especially one of them on pitch count. That's been the hot topic over the last 3, 4, 5 years now. We've had a lot of changes, from different pitch counts, and we've kind of settled on where we are right now. We've been there for the last couple of years. So just talk to us about, your thoughts on the pitch count and, advantages, disadvantages that you've seen over the past couple of years.
Right. Well, the pitch count thing, started obviously when you started having kids playing year round now, a lot of them. And I think God puts X number of pitches in your arm, and they were kind of exceeding that. And it's tough on your arm. That's not the way God made your body. That underhand softball throws a lot easier on your shoulder than what we do. So, I think you've got to have X amount of time for rest. And it's going to be a little bit different with every kid, no doubt about it. The pitch count thing is, we started trying to take care of kids because of this, and because the number of injuries has ramped up just to such a high number with arm injuries with kids. And they don't always, they're going after that scholarship like that or that commit like we had talked about earlier, and they're going to do, they're going to play 9 zillion travel ball games and school ball and this, that, and the other. And, and the pitch count thing has changed. I think in the long run, it's definitely a good thing, for the kids. At some point in time, is it tough? Yeah, at times it is. I messed up on one. I got concentrating on the game. We had a real crazy, wild, here we go, extra inning game in a tournament in Monroe, actually, and I left the guy in too long, and I got to sit out the next game. And all that stuff. But, it's our kind of rule of thumb that we do, what I try to do, and it's not 100% etched in stone guideline, but I try to give our guys 1 hour of rest for every pitch they throw before they're throwing full tilt, from the mound again. There's a million other things they can do conditioning wise and arm strength wise, besides the pitching thing. But, I think as now the medical, as far as the rules that we've done, we started with the number of innings, which I agree that wasn't a really great thing to do, because you could throw a million pitches in that inning, but it's, to the actual pitch count. And now with, some of the medical guys have got in, I went to a couple of clinics down at Tulane that were just awesome as far as them explaining the how and why. And they were kind of tied in with Dr. Andrews, who's reputation-wise one of the best, ortho doctors in the country and stuff. So it's we're all learning on that, and I imagine that will be one of those things. It's going to be lots of tweaks forever as we go and try to improve and get it better. But it's getting there I think every time we've done something on it, it's been a little bit better for our kids.
Yeah. And you and I have been, we've served on a couple of advisory committees together on the pitch count over the last couple of years. And I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, it's not perfect, like you said. There may be some tweaks here and there, but I think right now we're in a pretty good spot. And I think that pretty much everybody can manage your pitching staff based on what we have now. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is your thoughts on making the first round. And of course, this affects the non-select schools. Making the first round 2 out of 3. For those of you who don't know out there, the LBCA, our advisory board, I guess you're gonna put it like that. We've come up with a few different proposals, and we have actually, last week, actually the 31st was the deadline, and back in August, they extended a little bit because of the hurricane situation and everything. But we did write up a proposal for the non-select schools, 2A through 5A, to go best 2 out of 3 in the first round. And I know, of course, it's really affected 4A and 5A schools probably the most, because, just about every 4A and 5A school has at least one dude that can, kind of a shutdown dude. And, and I know you've been on that side of that. So, as a 5A coach there in Denham Springs, kind of tell us your thoughts on, making that first round 2 out of 3.
Well, when we first started, that's what a lot of coaches wanted to do when we kind of tweaked the playoffs and did a 2 out of 3. Back then at the time, we were some of the views of some of the guys at the LHSA at that time where they didn't think a number 32 seed would want to play a number 1 seed 2 out of 3. They wouldn't want to do that. And, they were more concerned with, the expenses into this and that and some of the things, and just and concern about a 32 team going, no, we're not traveling from South Louisiana up to North Louisiana to play a number 1 seed and for a 2 out of 3 thing. That's, and just so for those reasons, they want to do that first round, just the one and done type deal, which, like you said, as we've all seen there, you know, a lot of teams will have that one stud that you really don't want to face. And sometimes with the scheduling of how playoffs go, they can throw that guy in that first game and maybe in that second game, you know, coming into you on that next one. But it's, you know, that's pretty tough when you're in that situation. And that, I think most of the coaches statewide want to get it to a 2 out of 3 deal. So it's going, you know, in the long run, percentage wise, the better team should win. Not always. They're not, you know, we know in baseball that's never etched in stone, but it's, you know, we've been on the receiving end a couple of times. We got to place, you know, some schools who might have had that one guy and they beat a school that was ranked a lot higher than them. So we got to play that other bunch in the second round in a 2 out of 3, which, all right, way to go. Good rule.
Yeah.
Kind of depends, I think, which side of that coin you're on whenever, you know, whenever that rule comes into play with you. But it's, you know, it's, I think in the long run, I think it would be better for the kids. I think the coaches would like it a lot better to do the 2 out of 3 all the way through if you can. Might make scheduling a little crazy, which is good Louisiana weather we always have, but you know, it's just one of those things you got to deal with. So,
well, I know obviously in the select classes for us, I mean, just, but that's, I mean, I know for me personally, you know, our school, you know, we've been in a couple of situations over the past couple of years in a 2 out of 3 series where we've, you know, just messed up and lost that first game, you know, and, but we were able to come back and win the next 2 and to advance. And I do think that it's just for the game of baseball, for statewide, I mean, your best team is, I mean, it's the best for them. It's a 2 out of 3 series. And,
I agree.
And I think that's what we're all about is, you know, we want to see the best play, you know, play for state championships and things like that. So, you know, if you're out there and, if you're hopefully, you know, we've got a good majority that are going to be for this. And of course, it's going to, you know, affect the non-select schools 2A through 5A. That proposal has been submitted. And assuming the handbook committee approves it, you know, sometime late September, it will be on the agenda to vote on it in January at the annual convention. So talk to your principals and get them to vote. The last couple of things, Coach, and I'll let you go, get on with your day. You know, I mentioned earlier that obviously you were the executive director prior to Tim O'Neill for the LBCA. And, you know, it's kind of talk to us a little bit about the where the LBCA, you know, kind of how it's grown and the importance of the LBCA in our state.
Right. Well, when I first started in it, you know, Coach Bailey founded it. You know, he's an old Denham guy and then went to LSU and all that. And he was kind of the founding guy. And Coach Bonio, Don Bonio, who was at Ash, he came after him, and then Guy Simmons after him. And when Guy moved out to Texas to start coaching out there, and it's grown a bunch. There's no doubt. You know, and some of the original things in meetings. You know, the good thing to me about it always is you could come in and the coaches who you competed with and got after each other, stay all real hot and heavy during the season, you could actually be nice and friendly with, you know. Yeah. But you could talk, you know, you get to see all your baseball buddies in a non-competitive situation, which was really good. And, you know, you got to, and at our clinics, you know, we always try to get real good guys to come in and speak. And, you know, that's been from Coach Bailey, and Tim's doing it now, doing a great job with it and everything. And, but also, once again, those, you know, after the meetings and you get to sit around and talk with your friends and, you know, might talk with you and learn some of the way y'all do things, or talk with somebody else, you know, some of the other coaches. And it might kind of back to what I said earlier about a different way of explaining something that we do, but a different way of explaining it. Did you learn either from the speakers there or from the other coaches at other high schools? And it's just, there's a ton of baseball you can learn there real fast and real easily if you get in there and talk with some guys. So I think it's really super good for our coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just go ahead and start plugging the LBCA. We'll have the annual convention again in January. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but just Tim will be sending those dates out here this fall, and he's already got a good lineup of speakers. And so, like Coach Carroll said, man, it's just a great time to be around each other and if you haven't heard, the ABCA will be all virtual. So that's going to be, that's a little different than, so the LBCA will be a great time to where we can actually be around each other and have dinner together and sit around and talk a little baseball. So I'll put a plug in there for the LBCA convention in January. Last thing real quick, Coach, is, obviously you've been in this game and in coaching for a long, long time. And, we have a lot of really good young coaches around our state. We have some older coaches. I say older coaches. I mean, I look at myself. I'm 46, but I didn't become a head coach until I was 40. I've been in it for well, actually, I'm going in my 8th season now, so I guess I was actually about 38 or 39. But I'm not good at math, so sorry about that. But what advice would you give to young coaches, whether they're just starting out in their coaching career or they're kind of like an older coach like me who'd been an assistant a long time and finally got a chance to be a head coach? What kind of advice would you give a young coach?
Well, to me, and I've told several of my players this before, if their parents were mad or wound up or whatever, and I would tell them, the important thing to me is my relationship with them, not necessarily with their parents, which now a relationship coaching parents is important too, as far as they're going to help them do some things for your program. But my number one thing, like I said earlier, is the trust part with that kid and really making sure that, they know that you're trying to help your program as much as you can. You're going to work your tail off, because that's going to be one of those things. The good attitudes and bad attitudes are both contagious. And if they see you working your tail off, then it's kind of hard for them. They see me picking up trash at the ballpark. It's hard for them to fuss about me telling them, hey, go pick that up over there. Y'all go clean that up. It's hard for them to fuss with that if we're doing it also. So, I would say just work and, understand there's a million different ways to teach hitting and pitching and defense and all of that. And it's, you're always going to learn. And like I said at the clinic when I spoke a couple years ago, I said, I think I consider myself a pretty good thief. I steal really, really good ideas from other coaches that are really make sense to me. And it's, you're never, ever going to stop learning. And it's, I try to steal a little thought, a little something. I try to tweak something in our program every year. Just sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's, you're always going to keep learning and finding things out that are an easier way, a better way of teaching it or doing it than you've done before.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice for them. But Coach, I really appreciate you joining us. And like I said, I wanted to get you on one of the first few guests here in the Coaches Corner, because, I mean, you are, you have a great reputation in our state, and a lot of, I know that I really look up to you as, just that, there's certain coaches that are kind of on that elite level that I believe, and I think that you're one of those coaches. And I appreciate the influence you've had, not only on the young men that you've had there come through your program, but other coaches throughout the state. You've had a huge influence, and I really appreciate that. So, like I said, I really appreciate everything you've done, and I wanted to throw that out there. We, from the LBCA, the influence you've had in the LBCA as a former executive director, and growing this organization, and we wouldn't be where we are today without your influence when you had it. So on behalf of the LBCA, thank you for what you did over the years that you had it. So.
Gotcha. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And that's as you know from helping with it and seeing what Tim does too. That's a major team effort right there.
It is.
Doing those and getting those clinics on and doing all that stuff. So it's a lot of guys helping on that deal.
All right.
Always have. So
yeah. All right. Well, this has been the latest edition of the LBCA Coaches Corner with Denham Springs head coach Mark Carroll, and we hope you enjoyed everything that Coach Carroll said, and hope some of you young coaches take this to heart and seek his advice on if you have advice, reach out to, or if you need advice, I should say, reach out to him. He's always willing to share what he knows, and that's one thing that's good about the game of baseball. I mean, I don't think we have a lot of guys with a bunch of, huge egos that just, going to keep everything to themselves. If we can help somebody, we're going to help you. So reach out to Coach Carroll at any time. And again, just thank you for joining us, and see you next time on the LBCA Coaches Corner.